resources. By implementing more accessible and flexible financing models, we can support youth and locally led projects that are rooted in local knowledge and create long term impact. Imagine a future where people who live in each landscape drive transformative change. Effective restoration depends on policies that support the very people impacted by land degradation. This means welcoming youth, women, and other systematically
design is
excluded
actually so
voices
cute.
into the policy conversation, so they
It's
are
very
key
fresh.
decision makers in crafting solutions and shaping their futures. Restoration is more than theory. It's practical, hands-on work. Programs that provide mentorship, technical training, and capacity building in both rural and urban areas will ensure that the younger generations have the skills to make a lasting difference. Join us to regreen Africa.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the session on regreening Africa. It is an early start, so maybe. Okay, I'm gonna sing a song and see if we can bring an audience. It's one of my favorites. I know. Happens rarely. A broken man without a home, desperate and so alone. A victim of society, no one really wants to see. Some of us don't even wonder, some of us don't even care. Couldn't we accept each other? Can't we make ourselves aware? There's got to be a way to unite this world today. Come together to relieve this pain. Yeah. There's got to be a way to unite this human race, and together we'll bring on a change. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this thrilling and exciting session. I love to start the day with music. There's no better way to get going. And hopefully this song, which is one of my favorites by Mariah Carey, always reminds me of hope, and what we can do as a collective and how we can rewrite the future, and as a community be able to bring in something new to this world and not just accept it for what it is today. So I'm really excited. If you are here, join us. It's going to be exciting. And we have a few emojis for you to react to the session. So if you like something, thumbs up. If you don't like it, thumbs down. I'll have some questions and you can answer. If you're confused, there's a question mark. So feel free to come on in and take a seat as we get started, especially because my first question is here. So you'll need your emoji. Okay, so do you believe Africa's landscapes can be fully restored with the right effort? Thumbs up for yes, thumbs up or down. Even in the face of climate change and drought and okay, there's a middle. Okay, that's a good way to do it. Just not sure. Okay, thumbs up and someone who's maybe a little skeptical. Do we think that youth leadership can make a significant impact on restoring Africa's landscapes? Thumbs up for yes, thumbs up for down for no. All right. And then just general, what are the energy levels today? Thumbs up, I'm feeling wonderful. I'm a morning person. Thumbs down. Okay, question mark. Thumbs up, down. She needs coffee. Bring it fast. Okay, and then some thumbs up for the most part, which is brilliant because some of you are speakers and I'll need your energy for this discussion. So Regreening Africa, if you don't know it, is not just a slogan. It is actually a United Nations World Restoration flagship. It's been awarded this year by the United Nations for being a success in large-scale ecosystem restoration. The first phase had several different countries involved. really looking at how do we engage local communities who are doing the restoration and helping them have the data, the evidence, the funding, and the knowledge to continue to scale that work and do it right. So what often happens, you see all the partners at the bottom. People get this big money, 20 million, $12 million, and it's very rarely that youth are involved in the process of designing these big programs and in implementing these programs. So we were very excited to be able to change the paradigm a bit and have a really in-depth youth consultation around what are their needs and what do they want to see happen when it comes to regreening Africa, but also to really influence the program direction. So this report is being launched today. Welcome to the celebration. It's called Rooted in Restoration, Youth-Led Transformative Change for Greening Africa. So as you know, 65% of farmland is degraded. Soil is massively degraded on the continent. We have a lot of work to do, especially as we consider how to do that within economic, growth and transformation for livelihoods. And while lots of countries have made commitments, the implementation of said commitments is not 100% there. So we were excited to think about how young people, who are really the largest force of the population and the future of the continent, can help drive this action and how those that are already doing so can be better supported. So we're really excited. We had multiple partners from the Youth and Landscapes involved in this consultation, and I want to probably invite to the stage now our speakers. So we have with us Kamanzi Claudine. She is a GLF Drylands Restoration Steward, founder of the Forest for Life project. Round of applause for Kamanzi. We also have Nancy Barisoa, who's a young leader from Madagascar, gender and land co-facilitator for the UNCCD Youth Caucus. And then we have Amos, who is a dear friend and done a lot, and is also the GLF Regional Coordinator for Africa. I don't want to get into it because it's a lot of awards. Brilliant. Okay, everyone has wonderful. So I guess I want to start off with Nancy because you've been involved in creating this report, and it's been a really collaborative consultation process. So can you describe the main messages for us to better understand?
Yes, of course. So thank you so much for having me here. So after several consultations, we are so happy to finally launch this report. So this report seeks to inspire and also aim to bring actions from the insights that we had with the young leaders from across Africa and even beyond on restoration. It also highlights the successful initiative that they've done in restoration. And not only that, but we see the importance of restoration, especially for Africa, in terms of what is happening in land degradation and desertification, like what we're attending here. So it's actually for everyone, whether you are a scientist, whether you are a policymaker, a community leader, it's for all of us to be inspired to take action. And having also meaningful youth engagement is that restoration, which is really important. Thank you.
Were you surprised by any of the report's findings? I'm just curious. In this process, are there things that you heard that you were like, wow, that's interesting? Or do you feel like it represented a large majority of what you think should happen?
Yeah, actually, I learned a lot, especially of the work that the young people are doing. And sometimes it's not seem enough. We're talking about tokenism and the young people not receiving enough funding. So I believe it's important to have those reports to highlight that at conventions like this and even higher level discussions. So I believe it's really important that we brought this together.
Okay, that's brilliant. And I hope we can talk more about how we make that happen. Kamanzi, coming to you, you GLF restoration steward, and out of so many applications, were selected as the shining example for the world because of the work that you're doing on ground. So can you share with us more from your experience what strategies have been most effective in engaging local communities and making sure that the restoration work is actually rooted to their needs and to their knowledge?
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'll say a little bit of what I'm talking, like what I'm doing on ground. So I had a project called Forest for Life. This project, we plant native indigenous trees by using, like, in the way of restoring our graded land. So we started doing it's on now 2 years, past 2 years. So we get chance to be selected in JLF as restoration steward. So we, as a part of being successful to uh, these activities that we are doing. So we just had this community ownership. This is the most of the strategies that we have been using. So how we were using it. So we initiate different group in our community whom we were just working together in our community. So we wanted them to be the lead, not us who is going to be leading the project, because we want them to participate on the activities that we wanted to accomplish. So this community ownership was the most of techniques that help us to be successful by implementing our project. So also, like, we know that uh, there was a limited resources, but we come up with providing this training through different workshop where we have to teach people in our community how they have to take their resources were. So this through workshop, we also train why the importance of restoring degraded land. They just have to first to understand why is it really important. So after accomplishing all those, providing the training, so that's how we found themselves being committed to on what we're doing on ground. So we said that. So for we know there is a climate availability, but what we have chosen is first was we choose the native indigenous trees that we were planting depending on what was really in the community. We didn't even focus on the knowledge that we have because we wanted our community to choose those trees that we wanted to plant so that they can be able to take care of them. So that's something that we have been using. Thank you.
Thanks so much. It's great to hear about the strategies you're using, and I'm curious. You're doing these trainings. What's the hardest part about getting people to come or be interested? Are there many people who are excited? How do you get people to get to that sense of awareness, or is it already there?
So how did they encourage people to join our program or our project is first we just have to convince them. So we seated together with our community members and then try to brainstorm to see the challenges that we're facing, which is like most of the production was still low, and then we wanted to enhance the production of our agricultural production, and that was also there was the continuous degrading of land. So everyone didn't even know that what it was the causes, and through that we just have to sit with them and then try to brainstorm all the challenges that we are facing. So after brainstorming it, that's when we end up convincing them to come, and they just came to work, agreeing to work with us. We also consult with our local leaders because they're the one who already work every single day with people in our community. So that's the many strategies that we are using to convince them to work with us. Thank you.
No, that's super helpful because I think sometimes when we talk about trainings, there's an assumption, that everyone wants it, but you're actually starting with what are the challenges you're having, future that you want, and then co-creating that answer and solution together. So to to take that lesson for all of us. Amos, I want to turn to you because you're aware of the different ways in which programs are created globally. We talk about scaling, restoration, and how do we do that. But what do you see as the biggest obstacles that are preventing projects like Regreening Africa or the Great Green Wall from really scaling and reaching their full potential, just from your standpoint?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Amos, as mentioned earlier, and I would like to pick off from a conversation that I had with a colleague yesterday. Yesterday, when I was having a chat with a colleague, and he asked me, "What's the biggest resource, natural resource in your country. And oftentimes we are quick to say gold, diamonds, silver, and so on to think of the minerals. But instinctively, it just came to me, it's like, I'm like, well, the climate and then our land. And I think if we start to look at our environment, African landscapes from that kind of angle, that the primary production factor, the primary raw material that holds together the economy, that holds together a society, is actually the climate, the landscapes, the environment, then a lot is going to change. It's more of a perception thing. How we look at our environment is very, very important. It determines how much we put in the environment, how willing we are to sustain it. But beyond that perception field, there is a few other things that that we actually need to scale up these restorations. First of all, I would want there to be a change in perception of restoration. Right? I would want to move away from viewing restoration as a project, but as a continuous process that we live with, that we evolve with in our landscapes. But there is a lot of things that hinder us from, going just beyond projects. And one of them is financing. Financing is a very, very big challenge in Africa, in a lot of African landscapes, because financing is very, very vital to drive restoration forward. And why is there a financing challenge when actually restoration is very financially lucrative? And I think that we need to change the view of restoration just as for the ecological good. We also need to start to embrace the idea that restoration has a potential, a very huge potential, to drive the macroeconomy of countries. And if we start to look at it like that, then we start to see opportunities and a very strong reason to get on other stakeholders like the private sector and the government to embrace restoration as as an avenue to drive socioeconomic development. And then there is an issue of the scale up. There is an issue of local community engagement and local knowledge. When you come with a context, when you come with your solutions or interventions that are not in sync with the local knowledge, with the local perceptions and values of the landscapes, then it's going to make restoration scaling very, very difficult. It's also going to really, really affect the impact, have an influence on the impact that you are likely to get out of your restoration activities. And I would like to invite anyone here who has ever thought about, investing in restoration, whether you're an investor, whether you're a policymaker. I want you to think of community engagement as a resource, because it can be a risk as well if community engagement and youth engagement is not well embedded in your restoration approaches. I mean, if you have a risk profiler, you're considering investing in landscapes, if you're considering venturing into restorations, think about community engagement as a potential risk, because without it, it's going to be very, very difficult to scale restoration. Then the third thing that I want to mention is um, the monitoring and the data gaps, right? Um, Many times we've been talking about, a lot of restoration has been happening in the form of tree planting. That's what people do. But little focus, attention is paid on the sustainability of it and how we track the monitoring process post the event of tree planting, of these restoration activities, the commissioning. We want to look at it to the very end. And so there is a lot of monitoring and data gaps that exist in terms of scaling restoration in Africa. Um, yeah, I'll stop there for now, but yeah, happy to.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Alex, for really laying out some of the challenges, but also the ways in which we can reframe thinking. And a question came to my mind as you were talking that I want to give to the audience. You have pieces of paper. You can use your thumbs up or thumbs down. So the question is, do you think that government can drive a bottom-up process like restoration to be successful? Okay, thumbs up, thumbs up. These two are, is that a not sure or? Oh, that's a thumbs up. Okay. Any other reflections from the audience? Thumbs up. Okay, so there's hope here. And there is maybe not so much here. Do you mind telling us a little bit of why you're not a yes? Why is it a yes for you? First language is French. Can she speak? Is someone can translate after? No, no French speakers.
I can translate.
After, okay. All right, we'll get into it after. Unfortunately, there is no translation in the pavilions. Then I want to turn back to Nancy. Maybe you can tell us more about your answer on this, but also explain how you think platforms like the Global Landscapes Forum can help play a role in shifting that paradigm and helping make sure that young people are not tokenized, but are meaningfully integrated into the policy and the funding mechanisms required to actually see that type of transformation.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. And actually, I believe it's a really important question as we gather here, because at this moment, the UNCCD have the youth engagement strategy that we even saw during the youth forum, right, and the youth statement. So why is that? Because over 3 billion of the world population is youth. And in Africa, we are talking about regreening Africa. It's the youngest continent in the world. We have around 60% of young people there. So I believe it's important for young people to not be there just for a visibility or just a symbolic presence, but it's important for us to really be part of the discussion, not only having a seat in the table. So we also did some consultation within the UNCCD Youth Caucus before COPs a few months ago, and what we saw is that it's really important for us to have a bottom-up approach. So first, how are young people going to make meaningful changes if they're not given fundings, for example? And we see the incredible work that young people are doing in terms of restoration, just like what we're seeing here with Claudine and her project Forest for Life, and many other young people that are not recognized. So I believe we can start empowering young people by giving them fundings and also giving them opportunity to share their stories, so that they give they have more impact and they can inspire more young people. Because we see the numbers, we see how desertification is affecting our world, and especially in Africa, in the Sahel region. So I believe that for now we need to work together, not only having young people as just some amount of representation there, but our future is at stake here, and we need our voices to be heard more, and to be more involved in all at all levels, not only during COPs, but throughout the year having capacity building as well is important for us to know how we can contribute to our soul, to our earth, and to our community. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nancy. The one piece that you brought up around funding is really interesting, because while we acknowledge that's necessary, the actual structures in which funding goes from the donor community or from investors to a scale of, Nancy, your project, what you can absorb and what you need is completely messed up, to just say it, frankly. So, there's all these risk mitigation efforts. There's all, just the administrative challenges and getting that money to those who are actually doing the work is huge. And I don't think we reflect on that as a global community enough, about what does it look like to have new finance mechanisms with different rules, to ease that sense of flow. There's a good example, at least I know, from the European Commission that had funding going to youth organizations. And I remember IFSA getting one, and those reporting requirements were very, very light. And it was still a great amount of money for us to be able to, use to drive these activities on the ground. But I've never seen a grant like that allowed us to not have to report so strictly. So I really think that's something we should bring up to the conversation here at COP is, how do we enable exceptions for youth and community projects, knowing that the benefit will outweigh the risk, and being able to take that on. So I want to turn back to you, Nancy, because you are doing the restoration work in Rwanda. How do you inspire and involve other young people in conservation, agriculture? We were hearing in the youth forum on Saturday from someone in India who was saying, my father did not want me to work in agriculture. He wanted me to be an engineer. And so it was like he was a rebel in his community, constantly fighting against. So, how do you inspire other people to really take on leadership in your community and beyond?
Thank you so much. I love discussions. I said that in my community or in one in general. So for us young people, we don't see agriculture as something that we can do for the whole life. That's in the past in past years. Was the image, because if you used to tell your parent that maybe I'm going to study in agriculture, take maybe bachelor in agriculture, that person should have maybe your mom wanted you to go to study like for nursing or medicine related courses or lawyers. So so nowadays kind of changed. So we said that I did conservation agriculture in my bachelor degree, but at the beginning I didn't understand why, like, is it something that I'm going to be taking. But as I kept learning, that's I'll get to be inspired with different lectures, some people in in the college. So that's how I come up with the idea of empowering or inspiring my fellow young people to join agriculture, specifically focusing those conservation related agriculture practices. So this is how I did, I tried to do it. So I know I had this passion of using multimedia. Uh, I have these skills in my multimedia, so I tried to combine all those skills that I had for me to show my other young people that it's something that you can do and still looks good. So for us, we wanted we're just thinking that our being the farm looks like the farmer, that in the culture, that the farmer is the person who looks really dirty every single day. So for us youth, we want to to be smart, maybe physically or so that's how the image that we had. So I tried to use this, try to do different documentaries about how we can you can do agriculture and still get money and still be smart as the way that you want. So I used my social media to post different posts. That's how that's the techniques that I have been using. Also in Forest for Life, we try to even encourage young people. So we had this part that says it's one of a small part that we have at Forest for Life called breathing environmental mind for young people. So where we teach the young people how this engaging in a restoration activity or agriculture related activities, how it's beneficial or how it's contribute to the our environment that we want to see. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's wonderful to hear that. I know there's some great accounts on social media that can parody the existing conception of oh, I'm African, so of course I don't have a phone, or there's so many funny things that you can just shatter and reimagine and have humor with it and be able to take that forward. And I think it's a lovely way to think about building community around a topic. Amos, I'm curious to know, what was your answer to the question on government leading, being able to facilitate a bottom-up restoration process, and your reflections around how we enable the locally led actions to really scale, and what strategies are effective in bridging the gaps between policy and grassroots innovation, because that's what we ultimately need to make it happen.
Thank you very much. About the role of government and the possibility, I do believe in that, and I think many times governments have demonstrated, in a number of occasions, there is a lot of evidence for this, where actually governments invest in restoration and it works out. But also there is in many occasions where it doesn't work out really. And so I think political will has a very, very huge role to play in the success of scaling restoration. But beyond, then the question comes to, what do we actually need to activate that political will? Politicians and governments speak the language of I call it the BB, the bankability or the economic value, and also, the ballot. And to get the ballot, you really need to, what you do really needs to have an impact on the electorate or the society. And so we need to start to produce a concrete evidence about the restoration economy. Because if the government does see value in it, beyond, a lot of times our governments look at the environment as a resource to extract from. And we need to change that narrative a little bit to say that, yes, while you extract from it, you can still sustain, this environment to build onto the economy that you kind of need. And I just want to share my really honest thoughts, about how we can sort of, scale that up through government action. And I think that one, policy engagement is a very, very important thing, especially the stakeholders that you involve in your policy engagement and how they come around these policy decisions that are being made regarding the environment. Me looking at like how a lot of, to share my honest thoughts right now, I think that a lot of the resources are being leased. I mean, if I look at a lot of African, in Africa, a lot of how policies come around, how trade agreements come around, without proper engagement, and you're leasing land, you're leasing the environment, you're leasing natural resources, you know, without proper engagement. And those that are really investing in this space, one thing that I want to invite them to is actually to begin to see this shallow engagement approach to restoration as a potential future risk for whatever investment that they are putting into their lands. And just to build on the question also, I see opportunities for policy advocacy, especially from young people and communities. That's a very, very important thing. That's what young people are actually doing. There is an opportunity for multi-stakeholder partnerships. Just speaking up on the kind of, there's a lot of claims about the environment, about the resources, about the landscapes that we're trying to restore. It's not just one interest, it's very, very multiple interests in that space. So how can we harmonize all those interests and make sure that there is a common ground? And rather the interests are not competing and conflicting, but they might be competing, but still collaborative in the same space. That's a very, very important thing to move forward. And then bridging policy partnerships is something that I just wanted to quickly also touch on. And then lastly, scaling this up, Claudine has already spoken about what the youth are doing. Youth empowerment and leadership is a very, very important thing in that space. Just also thinking about the decisions that are being made right now. I mean, we are youth. If we are not involved in these decisions, when the future comes, there is a likelihood that, I might contest to be a politician in my constituency and reverse those decisions. And so whoever is engaged in any transactions, any discussions, any negotiations with the government right now should actually look at the value of community and youth engagement, because there is a possibility that that can be reversed. And right now we have, for instance, in Burkina Faso, we have a youth president. I don't want to talk about how this came about. That's a long shot. But there is a youth. And if, these youth are dissatisfied with the decisions that are being made, there is a chance that they will take on the stage and move on the vehicle forward in the direction that they think is more reasonable.
No, I think that's so powerful. Thank you so much, Amos. I think your message to investors that the shallow engagement is a risk is something that is actually an increasing risk with the time that's passing. We, even if you look at Kenya, right? Places where people would think, oh, stability forever, nothing will happen here that will disrupt my work, my conferences, the gathering of people. And you see that young people are actually at the driving force of social movements in a way that has, always been the case, but is also increasingly present. And so if there's anything we learn, I think, from the past couple of years is that anything is possible. And we do need to be a lot more mindful around how we're thinking about engagement. I'm just wondering now if there's any questions from the audience that you want to bring to the panelists before we move to this last segment, or comments you want to add. Yes, we have one here.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you all for the amazing work you are doing. I'm very excited. We have a youth project that won um, the UN Decade World Flagship. I am. I was. I was. I had opportunity to be part of the youngest people to be on the selection committee for the World Flagships, and when you look at the applications that were received and the kind of requirements, especially for the selection committee, you are given this requirement to look at and select which of the flagships, which of the applications qualify for this flagship, and then seeing young people submitting these applications, going through all these stringent um, tasks and doing it was very inspiring. For me, it was a massive learning experience, and it was very nice when you just mentioned this because I happen to have seen this one, and I'm very very excited to meet people who are really doing the work, putting in the effort, and as Amos mentioned, these some of these things require a lot of work. The work that goes into these things are something you don't just sit and it happens. You have to put in the sweat. And congratulations to all of you for being selected. And I might say that I'm very also impressed by the work that you are putting in and the report that is coming out today. I am I am hoping that more young people from the African region use this as an inspiration. See it that everything is possible and we can take control of our land. We can make sure that the future that we want to see is fully and well in our hands. And that is something that I am picking out from this conversation. And amazing. I'm just excited that someone from a very young person, a young group. I mean, I know it comes with a lot of collaborations with all those NGOs, but a young person is part of the group that has been selected for the flagship. This is amazing.
Thank you. I love the perspective that you've brought in, and it touches on the challenges that we're talking about here. What are the challenges to getting to the point where you are recognized and acknowledging that, while this project, when the project started, it didn't have a focus on youth, it didn't have leadership in youth, and it was something that through reflection, has been a clear point that phase two cannot continue without this happening. So how can we also create moments for those who are leading restoration in terms of global recognition to actually say we can't continue the way we're doing it? We actually need to change the entire approach. So I want to kind of move into this next segment and speak to the policy ecosystem. And Nancy, you're here also as the co-facilitator around gender and land for the UNCCD Youth Caucus. So as a strong gender advocate, how do you see the role around youth-driven projects and that intersection around gender equality? And how can we ensure that the priorities are really integrated from the ground up?
Yeah, thank you so much. So yeah, I had the opportunity to serve this year as the UNC's Youth Caucus Gender Island co-facilitator. But apart from that, I also led my project called EcoShe, which earned a Climate Justice Award by the CDK and Climate Development Knowledge Network last year during GLF Africa, GLF Nairobi 2023. And by interacting with these women, because my project was focused on women and some environmental and science, climate science literacy in Madagascar, but I did not start in the capital city where the project used to start, right? But I started in the marginalized communities. And what I saw is that women there, youth in general, but especially women, want to learn new things about what is happening around that. They may not always be aware of that. And also within the youth caucus during our consultations and our meeting with young people from all over the world, we saw that need and that they want to their voices as well to be heard. We see that during our youth statement that was published during the youth forum last week, and they are sharing about their challenges, but not only that, but also the opportunities that are seen there. So I believe it's really linked because women are one of the most affected by this desertification problem, land degradation, and also drought. I also see that in my country, which is also really affected by desertification in the southern Africa, southern Madagascar. If you go there, it really looks like Dubai at some point. So we need people to be more aware of that. We need people to actually realize the problem that is affecting within them, because at some region in my city, for example, people don't take climate change really importantly. We need to raise awareness on that. For example, we see that 100 billion hectare of land is degraded every year, and this is terrible actually. And we need to build people's capacity on that, especially women who are really affected, more affected by that. And apart from that, also empowering them. We hear about, for example, the problem of land rights, but how women can even buy the land if they're not given funding for that. So we need to empower women economically as well. So I believe everything is linked, everything is intertwined in that aspect.
No, it's really true. And I think one of the interesting things around tenure and most actually government policy is just because you have the rights recognized doesn't mean it's happening in practice. And so a lot of it is cultural and in our traditions. And while there are some, aspects of tradition that we want to retain and elevate and continue to center in a restoration movement, there are some areas where you need active progress and progression for women and young people, especially in shifting and rewriting our futures. So Kamanzi, I want to come back to you. What would be your call to action to policymakers, donors, people who are here at the COP16, who have attended many COPs before? What is needed for young youth-led projects to really scale deep, out, and up in all ways? So, what hinders that progress, and what do you really want them to deliver for you?
Thank you so much. I'll start by saying that what is really hindering this ecosystem project activities that is being done in communities. I would say that first is lack of technical expertise, because most of the people really want to do this restoration activities or ecosystem activities, but they really lack this technical expertise. So I think that if this could be the mentorship program that can help all those people who are interested, who are doing it, that would be the first things that that can be able to motivate them, or be able to do the work they are doing on ground, will become more successful. Also, I would say that the challenges of funding. So they say that for me, I got a chance to be funded by JRF, which is just thank them so much for recognizing the work that we're doing in our community. So sometimes we get funds, but you end up getting for one. It could last from between 1 year and 3 years. So which is short time for us to be able to have this restoration activity will become more successful on ground, or be able to determine the success of the project. So I think that if it could be the best way that young people or this project that deals with ecosystem should be having, they don't have, like, say that the fund which can last for maybe 5 to 7 years. That's the way that you can be able to determine there is even the big achievement of the project. So I would say that even if I can say that the call to action for for the people and the co-op or petitioners, or I say that if there could be the way of flexible fundings, because sometimes you want to do something on ground, but if there is a different doors and regulation that you need to pass. Once you are not failing to do that, you can't be able to get the fund. If there will be that flexible fundings, also there will be even the way that they can even enhance the leadership for the youth who are doing the restoration activities or a ecosystem project. That would be the best way. Also, I can say that there will be like local knowledge integration. If like we all have the knowledge, but sometimes we forgot that even the local community has the knowledge. If there will be the way that integrating those scientific knowledge and local knowledge, that will be the best way of making this project become more successful. As a youth, for the young people who are in the restoration or who have this local initiative on ground that is there with restoration, I'll say that establishing the mentorship to them, providing maybe the advice on how they can be able to achieve their project or the best way they can do their project, that would be the best way to even encourage young people for who are in the restoration activity. Also that like most of the young people, they don't even have an access to land, which is a thing that sometimes it hinders them not be able to do something on ground related to restoration activities. So if there will be the post that can help them having the access to land, that will be the best way that they can be able to do all the activities the way that they want. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. A round of applause. So I have a question that's going to put you on the spot a bit. If there was a donor in the audience and you had your ask for I want this amount of money for 5 to 7 years, what's the funding request from your side? What's the amount that would make you feel happy to go back home and say, yes, we're ready to scale up, deep, out?
That's the tough question, but I would say that I don't have a certain amount that I can propose to him or her. But what I can say is just looking on what I'm doing. So I'll just have to convince them this is what I'm doing on ground. Maybe this is a partnership, but this is what I want. Maybe if there will be funds that he feel or she feel that she can support our initiative, I'll be happy to just to accept it. But I also consider this mentorship as a key way that it can help me. Like I can consider for someone who can be able to fund our project.
Very diplomatic. So 50,000, 100,000, 500,000. Okay, we'll find out later. Great to know. I want to turn Amos to you last. We are here at the Land COP, and it's been amazing to see how many people are here for the first time at a UNCCD COP. But there is conversations around the fragmentation of the three, the Rio Trio, the three conventions, climate, biodiversity, land. And we put a real burden on ourselves, on government, fragmented funding pathways, different targets and goals. When you think about, the future and how can young people help create a more integrated pathway forward, what are your thoughts of how we should take leadership to, bring a little bit more harmonization to this whole process?
Thank you very much. I'm really impressed by the number of people that have shown up for this COP, and I think that we are actually beginning to very much recognize that land is indeed the common denominator, connecting all the three Rio conventions. Now, about what young people can do in terms of making sure that those synergies are explored between, climate, land, and biodiversity. I think a lot has already been said, and there is evidence seated right in front of all of you here on what is being done on ground, how they're not only connecting, land to climate and to biodiversity, but how they are connecting it broadly to the SDGs, right? To exploring opportunities for employment, opportunities for, for getting finance and money, and many other core benefits that come along with restoration. And so I think that Claudine already earlier on mentioned about the advocacy and the awareness that she's doing. And I think that is something that young people can embrace and continue to build on. Innovations and local solutions are something that young people can also continue to really, really build on. And then lastly, capacity exchange and knowledge exchange, right? We want to learn what she is doing in her landscape and how that is bridging the connection between climate, land, and biodiversity. And she also wants to learn from other young people. So that kind of capacity and knowledge exchange that happens between young people can actually build a critical mass. It can build a movement of young people across Africa to sort of continue to explore those synergies. And now I just want to quickly touch on what would enable that. We need an increased investment, of course. We've been saying that financing is not enough. That is why we need to bridge the gap across these conventions. That is the same case when it comes to youth action. The second thing is cross-sectoral education. And so a lot of us learn in silos. You know, we learn in our space and we focus there and we're specialists. And that is not how the environment is evolving. We need to begin to recognize that there is a lot of interconnections in the environment and tailor our learning, our capacity building, our knowledge towards exploring and optimizing those interconnections. And then lastly, what young people can do is push for policy representation. That is a very, very important thing, and I hope that they continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amos, for the final words on this panel. I am really excited about what we heard today. I know that there are a few donors who funded this project that are looking forward to the key messages and insights that came from this discussion. We have a few minutes left, so I want to turn now to a video that we have from the South-South-North Director, Dr. Shanaz Musa, to answer the question on what shifts are needed in donor funding frameworks to better support youth, locally led restoration efforts, to really ensure that long-term sustainability, beyond the 7-10 years you were talking about, and ensure impact beyond the project cycles, which is a critical part of how we achieve success. So we'll listen from Dr. Musa now.
I'm deeply privileged and honored to be part of this very exciting and important event. My name is Shanaz Musa. I'm the CEO of the Climate and Development Launch Network and Director at South-South North. We've seen the incredible youth-led sessions and mobilization linked to the COP16 and Climate COP29, where right until the very end of the negotiations, the youth were pushing for progress on more equitable, just, and inclusive mechanisms for safeguarding the ability of current and, very importantly, future generations to survive and thrive. And the sessions that are unfolding at this COP are proving to be absolutely notified. To support youth and locally led restorative efforts in Africa, there's a few things that are very fundamental. These include funding frameworks and national planning that must prioritize local knowledge systems and the agency of communities. Historically, top-down restorative models imposed by external actors have sidelined the actual living narratives of African communities. This has perpetuated cycles of dependency, inequality, and absolutely unsustainable outcomes. Transformative change requires deep shifts in power dynamics to ensure that African youth and local leaders are central to all decision-making processes. Flexible, patient, and predictable funding mechanisms and sources are at the core to achieve this. They should aim to reduce bureaucratic and heavy barriers and place an emphasis on long-term investments that are directly managed by communities and youth leaders, where long-term reflection and learning systems are built in, so that they act as an adaptive way to respond to new challenges and opportunities as they do arise. When we look at national policies, it's very important that we should deeply embed indigenous and youth-led strategies, especially into the restoration plans, and also honor the traditional, local, and indigenous ecological knowledge it is in. And at the same time, it should look at integrating innovative solutions from local practitioners and look to develop indicators to report on youth-led restoration initiatives. And all this can support the inclusion of work into national and subnational processes that are linked to NDCs or gaps and quite a few other conflicts. When we look at capacity strengthening efforts, we should really focus on skills development and leadership opportunities for young African restoration practitioners. This will enable them to lead intervention tailored to their landscapes as well as their cultural context. And those cultural contexts are very important to start bringing to the fore. We should also look at empowering women and representatives of other marginalized identities, and this is very important to advance gender equity and social inclusion outcomes. And another aspect that is very essential for this work is effective communication. Restoration narratives must leverage culturally resilient platforms and use languages and formats that actually amplify the voices of youth and marginalized groups rather than cause more divide. We should also look at embedding a decolonial approach in the communication of the work through not-locally and co-production that can ensure that restoration is not a transactional act, but a process, and a process of empowering and strengthening the resilience of ecosystems where communities are centered and they strive alongside a restored landscape. And as somebody from the older generation, I feel it's very important that we support and amplify the voices of the youth. We should start creating space for the younger generation to take up leadership. And sometimes that looks like us just getting out of the way for the youth to carry on the important work that's needed. My sense is that this session provides a huge opportunity for us to not only listen to the needs of youth-led restoration efforts, but given the urgency to respond to climate change, we should take these concerns on board to act decisively. The Climate and Development Knowledge Program at South North is deeply committed to supporting youth-led initiatives. And this session is the first step in making sure we are co-designing support that is really demand-driven and at the root of based on local needs and experiences. And with that, I thank you.
Brilliant messages. Some key takeaways for me were the importance of decolonizing communication. It's not just in the funding, it's also in how you're thinking about narratives, community managed funds, and then being humble enough to know when it's time to get out of the way and create space. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us. I would love to ask you one final question. If you guys have a tree emoji, maybe panelists, you can grab we have a question for you. So show a tree, right? If you want to live in a world with more trees. Brilliant. Then can you come up on stage so we can take one beautiful photo together to celebrate our world with many trees? All right. We might need 2 layers. Jess, should we have some people down and some up, or just, yeah, maybe some in the front? Anyone short want to stand down here? You're short. Oh. Everyone has? Okay. Ready? Everyone here? So we're going to say trees On three, okay? 1, 2, 3. Trees. One more time. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Trees.